Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the second DearSA live stream. And it's just myself, Gideon, flying solo tonight. Rob is somewhere in the middle of the Karoo without data connectivity or sufficient cell phone signal to join us. So I'm going to be running us through the two latest campaigns, tonight's various topics, and just sort of interacting with you on my own, which is, I think, perfectly fine. I'm hoping that there's at least, there's about at least 17 of you tuned in. And hopefully this can be kind of an enlightening session and sit down, talk. And we don't have to keep it strictly on topic either. So diving right in and allowing everyone to just get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee and sit themselves down. We have two brand new campaigns that have been launched for about, I think, a week each at this stage, but there's no massive time frame on them and they haven't been officially pushed. And I think they're very relevant to our present situation in South Africa, pertaining to not just cost of living, but a specific focus on energy prices. And I think most people are aware that there's quite a global energy crisis going on, and we're talking here specifically with regards to electricity provision and the price and availability of electricity, the price of liquid petroleum gas, LPG, that has increased significantly since about February 2021, which isn't helped by the fact that China has been stockpiling and hoarding large amounts of the stuff since at least November last year, or in fact, it was exposed in November last year, the extent to which China is hoarding LPG. So that has pushed the prices of LPG up globally. And then, of course, fuel price, the petrol price, diesel price, that's up all around the world. But in South Africa specifically, we're sitting with a record-breaking petrol price that is at its highest point in South African history. And you start seeing headlines about people not being able to afford to even drive to work, or that they have to start considering compromising on if they're driving into the office or not because they frankly can't afford it. It's too expensive. Firstly, good evening to Jane. Good evening to Jules. Thank you for being here, and good evening to Sherwin Schreiber. And I will be interacting with comments and questions as best I can throughout the evening, and I will try to keep track of all of them. So if I interrupt my flow of thought or my train of thought, my flow of dialogue to interact with somebody, there's a very good reason for that. It's to try and answer the question before I forget, because I think I'm getting old and I've got early onset dementia, so it might be a bit difficult for me to keep track otherwise. So, hi, Kermit. Good to see you here as well this evening, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining me while I'm flying solo with you guys, but it's always fun to be here and just be able to talk to supporters of DearSA and what we do. And by the way, if there are any of you that wonder what it is we exactly do, we tackled that question head on in the previous live stream, which was last week, Wednesday. This is kind of our new experimental time frame to see if after 8 p.m. it suits people better, as opposed to the previous 6 p.m. slot. So do let us know. We'll obviously also have future live streams with some more guests on to discuss interesting and relevant topics, as well as to keep you updated with what we're busy with. So if you wonder what Dear South Africa actually does, what we stand for, what we're about, we did tackle that question in the previous live stream, but feel free to ask me again. I'm more than happy to unpack it here this evening. Lawrence, good evening. Good to see you. And Vanessa, hello. Thank you for joining me and joining everyone else. So diving in back to the campaigns. The first one that addresses the Eskom issue, I think more than anything else, is independent power producers in South Africa. And I'm going to try to share my screen, and it might end disastrously because I'm technically inept. So please just bear with me a second here, and I will see what I can do. Here we go. Okay, this is actually going to work fine. So what we have here is, this is specific reference to independent power producers. And the question we asked simply, so far we have managed to obtain about 13,481 individual comments. And it's essentially a survey, or not. No, it's not a survey. A survey is for a different purpose. This is a public input campaign that will serve as the foundation and springboard us into actually being able to take some sort of meaningful action on this issue. Last week's discussion, we had half an hour with Martin van Staden from, he wears many hats, but he is a policy advisor for both the Free Market Foundation and Sakelig, both two entities we've worked closely with in the past, and we do hope to work very closely with them going into the future. They're good people, and they obviously believe in, deregulating a lot of our horrendously over-regulated sectors in South Africa. But we just do public input on this. So we need you to tell us what you want. Scrap the red tape. Should independent power producers be allowed to immediately supply electricity to South Africa? I'm just reading through this. The presidency and the Public Enterprises Minister, Pravin Gordhan, are looking for emergency solutions to end the load shedding crisis. This comes as several parties and groups outside the government put forward emergency plans. An emergency plan could suspend the RRP and expand private energy production massively. So our two questions to you is there a need to immediately amend legislation? And so yes or no, do you agree that we should amend the legislation either to deregulate or not? And then what is best suited pertaining to addressing our power needs? Renewables, coal, nuclear, hydro, imports, or some other forms of generation? And you can really kind of select your answer straightforward from these panels over here. We do endeavor to make it as simple and straightforward as possible for you to stop the screen sharing, to have your say on these types of campaigns. And I think this is a very, very relevant one. And we are in discussions with some other organizations who want to push this issue. So the information and the input we get through this campaign will be fundamentally important with regards to how far we can take it. Public input's very important. Oh, jeepers, I forgot. I didn't know Sishley did a show this time as well. I'm going to have to check that I don't conflict with him and have a word. Good evening to DearSA, although I'm not sure who's behind DearSA tonight. It's a big team. Lawrence, evening. Is the call for Eskom not great or finished? You're going to have to expand upon this a little bit more. I do believe we have extensive stockpiles of coal still in South Africa, to the extent that we've been exporting them to the EU. So no shortage of that. Thank you, Julie. And please have your say if you haven't already. That's incredibly important. We are on our own. Just do it in your area as a community. I'm definitely a big fan of individual and community resilience and state proofing, because as we have kind of seen, and as Martin pointed out to me last week, that failure was built into Eskom from the start. And I tend to agree with him. And he made a very persuasive argument as to why that is, and why state monopolies, even state monopolies, are destined to failure. It's just a matter of time. And he made a good argument for deregulation. That, of course, doesn't mean you have to be pro deregulation. If you're against deregulation, your say matters as well. And we'd like to hear you voice it and verbalize it. That's the whole point of public participation. So when we say we're a nonpartisan platform, what's very important is to understand I've got my own political opinions, and I feel fairly strongly about a whole lot of things. But we have a 1.3 million subscriber base on our email list, and 200,000 of you on our Facebook, and hopefully a growing number of you on our YouTube channel. This is where I do the cringeworthy thing that all YouTubers do, say, please like and subscribe this video and subscribe to our channel. The chances of my political opinions and my social opinions and economic opinions not aligning with a large number of people who like what DearSA does is fairly massive. So as a personal individual, I have to keep my political opinions out of what we do, because otherwise the organization is not really non-partisan. So I cannot tell you what to think. Well, I can in my personal capacity on blogs and opinion pieces and other publications, but not as a CEO of DearSA. And I would never dare dream to tell you what to think. So that's why I'm inviting you to please have your say. Public participation and public input forms the foundation of a great many of our efforts that we've done in the past, and the successes that we've had, in order to have an impact on the way legislation and policy is shaped and the direction it goes into. And we'll talk about more of that later. And if you've got questions, please do ask. But it is absolutely key that people don't misunderstand the nature and intention of what we do. Your voice does matter. It has an impact. It's not just something that government ignores. And we are also the custodians and guardians of public participation. So if we see that the process is abused, we're more than happy to go to court, as we already presently are going to court at the end of this month, pertaining the National Health Act regulations from a public participation point of view, alongside AfriForum. And that's still happening, I believe, on the 25th, 6th, and 7th of July. So we'll keep you updated on this channel and on all our social media about what's happening there. Pete, I heard there were many farmers who had large solar arrays on their land and have been ready for a long time to connect to the grid. What is stopping this process? I presume what is stopping this process is regulation. And there was a whole bunch of things pertaining to, I think there was a cap on the amount of private electricity that could be fed into the grid. And I don't know if that was per supplier or in total, but there were a great many nonsensical, in my opinion, regulations that resulted in this issue getting to the point where it is. And that's why the argument for deregulation is made so strong and so strongly. Kermit, I stumbled across a big solar farm in the middle of nowhere 3 years ago. Couldn't find any info. I know there's one very close to Uppington, right? Well, in that sort of area. I used to see it while I still flew airplanes out towards the west, out that side of the airplane, gleaming in the sun. So yes, I think they must cut Eskom management power. I think there are millions of people who probably very strongly agree with you. So that is it for the Eskom campaign. Please do have your say on that. With regards to the other one, let me do another screen share. I haven't lost any of you guys while I did that, so hopefully this time around it'll be the same. And this is pertaining the fuel price. So a little bit of background on fuel prices. We are sitting now with, I think we had a 64% increase in the petrol price since, I think, June last year. It's massive. Like, the fuel price increase far exceeds inflation. It far exceeds pretty much everything else. And it's an inflationary driver in itself. What makes it worse is about 40% of the fuel price consists of taxes and levies. The one is the general fuel levy, and the other one is the road accident fund levy. And this campaign in particular, the fuel price campaign, DearSA.co/fuel price, addresses that question. A few people have commented on this so far, but now you all kind of know about it. This was prior to the July fuel price increase. So the fuel price is set to increase once again as the government subsidy comes to end in August. I know we're in for another August price increase, which is catastrophic, pushing the fuel price close to 30 Rand per litre. Is it time for an independent review of the fuel price structure and fuel taxes? Now, just to explain what this exactly is about, the AA, I think it was in 2020 or 2021, or even prior to that, already sort of called on Parliament or presented to Parliament the necessity for a complete review on the fuel price model and the fuel price structure, with specific reference to the taxation on it. It is crazy to think that if we made fuel zero tax rated, we'd be paying close to half of what we're paying per litre now, which would take a humongous amount of economic pressure off the country, in the sense that if you consider how important a productive input fuel is, it is in our food production, it's in our transportation of goods. I mean, 77% of our land freight is transported on the road, not on the rail. So every single thing that ends up on the shelf at your local grocer was transported there by road. So the fuel price has a massive impact on what the price of that good happens to be at the point of which you buy it. We have everyone pretty much, or the majority of our population, commute to work and back and elsewhere with the use of internal combustion engines that are burning fuel, whether it's petrol or diesel. So the cost of living directly attached to the fuel price is not insignificant. And any increase in the fuel price will automatically have a felt impact on your cost of living. So an independent review obviously is calling for someone who is not the government to do the work and take a look at what the fuel price structure should be according to rational outlook on data. Again, input on that is something that we can use. We can do a full presentation to Parliament with that information. The Minister of Energy, whomever else is considered to be a significant government or public sector stakeholder. The thing is, once you have already participated in a campaign like this, it doesn't end. You may not be aware of the full process after the fact, but we compile a full executive summary. We make sure that every single comment that has been delivered is published. It is anonymized in the sense that we don't put people's personal information out there, but we do put the comment out there with an identifying characteristic that makes it unique, but that doesn't connect it to a specific citizen. So you are not compromising your own identity by commenting. We make sure that comments do stay anonymous. And that the only people who know who has commented is us as custodians of the data and strictly governed by PAPIA, and then the originator, depending upon which government office that happens to be. So we take that executive summary, which we can turn into a full presentation, and we do present this often to Parliament. But what happens often, as what happened with the Firearms Control Act and that happened to a few other pieces of legislation, when the public pressure is significantly vast, it often means that the proposal hits a dead end and gets pulled off the table for further work before we don't even get the opportunity then to give a presentation at all. And we will probably then be involved in another public participation process on the same thing in future after it's been changed according to what the public wants. So it does have an impact. Let me just actually catch up on comments here because it's been scrolling quite a bit. The regulations were supposed to be lifted already. That was, I presume, the deregulation of private energy provision. I'm not 100% privy on what their current status is pertaining to how many regulations are still in place and what their nature is. So if someone wants to school me, please do. This is also kind of a problem. We do have a massive public sector. It runs off taxes, but the country is struggling to afford to pay those taxes, which is, if you look at all our economic indicators and data, that's not surprising. It's quite understandable why it's difficult. Commies don't do a free market. Thanks, Alex. The ANC needs to be abolished. We've been seeing a lot of this. Good evening, Moonchild, and it's nice to see a familiar face here as well. Is it so funny that we export fuel and electricity for cheaper than it is in the country? And that is, again, the impact that taxes have on a good or a service, is it makes it more expensive domestically. What boggles my mind is that our neighboring countries receive their fuel from SA, yet they pay for far less than we do. Yeah, and I'm afraid that not before the government employees start paying for their own vehicles and fuel, etc. Nothing will change because the government does not feel this is in their own pockets, as the huge allowances form part of the salary packages. And this is exactly the types of comments. If you do feel that we need urgent intervention on the fuel price, please do make a comment on that particular campaign. And in fact, do us a favor and please subscribe to the DearSA mailing list. It is by far the best way to keep track of the latest developments and the latest campaigns and everything. And we are redoing the whole website at the present moment and improving it. We've received a lot of comments from the public pertaining the Google ads and the way it's set up, and that it's a bit difficult sometimes to navigate it, and that it's not the ideal layout. And we have taken these comments to heart, and presently it is being developed better. But at the moment, on the old present website, the way you are going to subscribe to us is unfortunately on the homepage, dearsafrica.org. Subscribe to the DearSA Responsible Citizen Network to receive essential notifications, and then you click there, and what it then does, it opens up another window in here where you just put in your information and what sort of updates you'd like to receive. So please do subscribe to that mailing list. It helps us stay in touch with you, even though we are expanding our methods of communication extensively at the moment. Moonchild, not sure if you already discussed this, but what is your opinion on DA's suggestion for electricity and fuel, Gideon? Color me uninformed or ill-informed. I actually missed that one, or I can't recall it. What exactly did they propose? I'm happy to Google it while I'm here with you, because it might be 100% sensible, or it might not be. Explain to me, like I'm grade one, what is driving fuel prices so fast and high. So we have, at the moment, a multifaceted problem. The one is the global oil prices increasing and quite high. The second part is that our refining capacity in South Africa is greatly diminished. I think we lost two major refineries, one in the Cape, one in Natal, that actually shut down. So a large number of our fuel is being imported, unless I miss my guess, which adds additional costs to it because we have a massive global shipping snarl up. And the prices of global shipping and transporting of goods and raw materials has increased significantly since February 2020. I know that the price of a shipping container spiked something crazy. Like in November 2021, it was 1,600% more expensive to rent a shipping container than it was in February 2020, which is a humongous price increase. And we saw that in a lot of consumer goods that were brought in from overseas, which is, South Africa being a net importer of consumer goods, we feel it's stronger than most others. Another major driver of our high fuel prices in South Africa is that basically half of them are taxes. So we already had an artificially high fuel price that is then further driven up by global supply shocks, and the like, which you can ascribe to numerous factors, like some of which I've mentioned. There's probably a whole bunch that I left out, but that is the thing. And yeah, and most of the stuff you can trace back to political policy decisions that have also led to a type of artificial scarcity. There's enough oil, but we're not getting it out of the ground. We're not getting it to where it needs to go to be refined. And you need to kind of ask what the reasons for that is. Eugene, fuel prices need to fall. Small business owners are really struggling to keep their heads above water. And yeah, I know. I have seen the impact that this has had on the small and medium enterprises. I mean, the big corporates can't absorb this price increase either. And I shudder to think what it's doing to transportation companies and what it's doing to tourism, and in fact, what it's doing to all of us at the same time. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Vudzako, good evening, sir. JJ Janssen van Rensburg, sadly need to go prepare for load shedding. Thank you for the hard work you do. Will transcript of this be available on their social media after? Absolutely. So all these videos will stay on our Facebook and our YouTube channel, and you can watch them at your leisure at any time. And we will hopefully be chopping them up into smaller bits that we'll post as individual videos. If I happen to say something particularly noteworthy tonight, which I can't promise I will, I might not. CN, absolutely agree that private electricity should be made available. Well, there you go. Please tell us exactly that with the submission. We'd really appreciate it. Here we go. Thanks, Moonchild. Jordan Lewis presented a 10-point plan for the electricity crisis and a 3-point plan to reduce the cost of fuel. Look, I have to give them credit that the DA has been quite good at writing sensible policy. The problem with all these things is you're presenting sensible policy to a central government that sometimes is open to implementing it and sometimes, or very often, is not. The pressure is real there at the moment, and I think if there was a time to have a rational solution for this and actually get it passed, we're kind of sitting on the knife edge or the cusp of it, because yeah. Sorry, someone said literally. JJ said literally, Eugene. Oh, okay, yeah. Just agreeing with them. Fortunately, the way that I read your comments, I don't know who's commenting on who, and they just pop up individually. So you guys can have a fat chat with each other in the comment section, and I will just see them come up individually. CN, further, private electricity being sold back into the grid by not only private businesses, but especially every individual household should be actively encouraged. And I agree wholeheartedly with this, in the sense of it kind of paints a picture of how in the dwang our grid is. If you think that the manufacturing sector in South Africa really took quite a bad nosedive already a good couple of years ago. So We have far fewer smelters operating and other high intensity users of electricity. The number of households and other businesses that have invested heavily in solar power or other methods to either get themselves off grid or to reduce their reliance on the grid markedly is up quite sharply. So considering how many fewer users there are that are intensely dependent on Eskom, and they're still struggling to keep the lights on, is probably a bit of an alarming indicator just how fragile the situation is, and how close to potential grid collapse we are probably teetering on, although no one will really confirm that for us. Okay, thank you for answering JJ's question as well. Whomever you are, masked wonder behind the handle there. It's probably any one of our Facebook admins, of which there's a few. So thank you for keeping an eye here. So onwards to where DearSA is going next with what we're doing. Please comment on those two campaigns, and I'm so sorry for not having much structure to this. Where we're going next. So we recently obtained funding for specific project from the Civic Tech Africa. They are a subsidiary and partner of the European Union, as well as I think was the German Institute for International Cooperation. And they're giving us about 6 months worth of funding specifically for upgrading our systems, our website, everything that plugs into the front and the back of it, so that we can actually facilitate a lot more comments without the website crashing. Because believe it or not, we've had issues on really hot campaigns with the website being completely overwhelmed and the servers not handling the amount of traffic. So there needed to be a lot of hardware and software upgrades, a redesign of it, with, of course, the purpose of rolling this out to a much larger part of the South African population. Their top concern is that not enough South Africans are getting the chance to participate, to perform public participation. Lots of challenges to that pertaining data costs, infrastructure, communication infrastructure availability and connectivity and all those sorts of things. And we had to come up with a couple of interesting solutions to solve that. And if any of you are from the Northern Cape, then there's probably nothing I can tell you about connectivity problems and why they do need solving. And that applies to the general population pretty much everywhere. So we got that grant, which has been a bit controversial. I can understand people's concerns, but I can also assure you have nothing to be concerned about. DearSA is 100% independent, and I'll talk about our medium-term plans to retain our independence in a bit. But we're quite proud of achieving that grant from Civic Tech Africa and the EU. It was a lot of hard work to present it to them and to convince them that we are worth funding, and we happen to fall within the funding priority for this, and it's allowed us to get a lot of stuff done that we otherwise would just frankly couldn't afford. Our goal with regards to actually being 100% self-funded in the medium term is, if we had 10,000 monthly subscribers giving us 50 Rand a month, we'd essentially be 98% self-funded, and we could be financing most of these projects ourselves without needing to seek outside funding opportunities, which is exactly where we'd like this organization to go within the next 3 years. By the way, if that sounded like a sales pitch, it wasn't. But if you do feel inspired and you want to be a monthly subscriber or just a once-off donor, in the description of this video, there is a link that you can just click on and follow the instructions, and you can become one of our valued contributors who keep the lights on at DearSA and help us do what we do. Sorry, let me just interact with a few comments. And you're welcome to ask me pretty much anything about this process if you'd like, because the other cool thing about DearSA is we really want to be as transparent as humanly possible. That's part of the gig. We also, by the way, are in the process of public benefit organization applications. So for those of you who are donating to us or would like to donate to us in the future, we will hopefully very shortly be able to give you a tax certificate for those donations that you can claim money back from SARS. Now, isn't that heartwarming? See, an independent review of fuel makes absolute sense. How much of the fuel price do you think we should be paying to the RAF? Current average R3.77 a litre. I'm going to reserve my opinion on this for the sake of neutrality. But bear in mind that the RAF, not all that many years ago, were caught irregularly spending, I think it was a good couple of million Rand on renting plastic furniture for an office. And I think, and I'm paraphrasing here, and I might be remembering correctly, I think they were paying something like 10,000 Rand rent per plastic chair per month, which must have been one hell of a plastic chair. But I'm getting off topic. Sulet, turbines and solar panels, the rich government officials, members are fooling us all. Yeah, they are indeed. I lose around 4 billable hours every day. And I think that is a crisis that's smashing numerous small and medium businesses. And the fact that you can't keep the lights on, and you can't keep customers in the store, and you can't, or even worse, you can't do your work if you are actually someone that needs electricity to perform vital tasks. And some stuff just is not viable for a business to take off grid because the energy usage is just too high and it's too expensive. It does cost probably close to R1 million to take a business properly off grid. So I can imagine that's out of reach for most small and medium enterprises at this stage. Most of them, fortunately not all. I'm saying this is Miss Helder Sidrai. Apologies if I mispronounce your surname. Government seems to be holding back on private electricity supply for years, like solar farms, etc. Is there a legal route we can hold them liable for non-performance, personally liable? So this is actually a good question, and keep your eye on this channel because we're having some discussions with a group that's taking the electricity and fuel issue, well, specifically the electricity issue, on very seriously at the end of this month. Well, I'll be having a call with them next week, and I'll fly up to Gauteng to personally see them end of July. And we're hoping to have a cracker of a co-facilitated campaign on this and actually take this information data and do something very useful with it. Kermit, as long as it's not Klaus or Georgie Boy, I don't see a problem. Well, thank you very much, sir. But I do promise you, if we do manage somehow to convince George to give us any funding, you'll be the first to know. Moonchild, congrats for getting the funding at DearSA. I used to be the national fundraising manager for an NPO, and I know exactly how difficult it is to get funding donations. So thank you so much for the vote of confidence and the support. I personally really appreciate it. And like I said, if you ever have any questions pertaining our organizational independence, like we're not going to censor you for asking that, and we'll gladly answer it to the best of our ability. Like, I might be too stupid to give you an answer, but if I am too stupid to give you an answer, I will find you someone who can give you an intelligent answer and send them in your direction. Yeah, unfortunately, I think the energy crisis and everything else that plays around with it is contributing to our chronic brain drain. This is in reference to the super expensive RAF plastic furniture. Also pay around 350 per unit electricity. Yeah, the electricity prices are extensive, and they have increased markedly over the past year or so. So ladies and gentlemen, I was hoping to have Rob on here with me this evening. It would have been a much longer live stream and a much longer broadcast, but I still have about 40 of you who are giving me your semi-undivided attention. If there's anything specific, questions, queries you have, please ask them now. Otherwise, I'm going to let you go and get back to your lives. Alternatively, if there is something you want to ask us and you can't think of it right now, but you'd like to get it through to us after this broadcast, please pop us an email to info@dearsouthafrica.coza, and we will either get back to you directly, or we'll incorporate the question simply into one of our future live streams. We're going to try and do this every week. And please tell me what time frame you think is best, because 6 o'clock wasn't bad, but I think it was a bit iffy for some people, especially if they have kids and the kids are need to bed. And this is the 8 o'clock slot, but we might be conflicting with Big Daddy Liberty, and I don't really want to conflict with him because his show is a lot more popular than this one, and I don't blame him. Moonchild, I'm a member of DearSA, but I'll do sign up for a monthly donation tomorrow. You guys are really doing fantastic work for this country, and Moonchild, I really appreciate this. And I repeatedly say this, and it's not insincere. I genuinely do appreciate every single person that gives us any amount, monthly or even once off, because it really keeps the lights off. Not off, on. Eskom keeps the lights off, you guys keep the lights on. Keeping the platform running, the running costs are not inexpensive, and we have a lot of plans to improve this platform, and thankfully we got the grant, which is helping massively to do that. But it's not going to end after one project. I mean, we've got about 7 of them lined up, but they're chronological order type, so have to first get the one successfully completed before moving on to the other. Joe, I'm very concerned that this possibility for the red tape to be cut for independent power suppliers thing is a Trojan horse. How can we be certain cronies won't score massively from this? So the hazard with deregulation always is, to some extent, that connected individuals and firms will be in a favorable position to kind of exert some sort of, come into the market and dominate it. But also think with energy provision, if it's properly deregulated as it should be, there'll be so much competition that you won't necessarily be forced one or the other. I don't think it'll be another multi-choice situation where multi-choice is like the only satellite television provider in South Africa. And I think, with online streaming threatening them so much that they actually kind of asking for government intervention, it is an indicator that that model may be past its sell by date 100%, especially since people are finding other ways at watching sports. So I don't think it'll be the same with electricity as it is with multi-choice. Fortunately, 2 very different industries. But I could be wrong. But again, valid concern. Please put that in a comment. It's something that needs to be engaged with by people more intelligent than me. Kermit, we still need to talk about printed pews, but that's for artists. Well, please come with this comment Friday night. Temba and Khofu and Floyd and myself are having a chat on my personal channel about all sorts of things that go pew. But that's not a DearSA discussion. Thank you, CN, for your comment and your support as well. Hendo, good evening. Okay, you're kind of joining us at the tail end, but like I said, I'll still be here if you guys have questions. I'll give you again another couple of minutes or interactions or any interesting things, because this really is as much for your benefit as for mine. And I kind of made my announcements and chats in the beginning. So this is really just freestyling it with the audience and the people who care about what we do. Yeah, Kermit, I'm not gonna put that comment on the screen, but good on you, sir. Thank you for giving it. No, it's not Floyd Shivambu. It's a good type of Floyd. You'll meet him on Friday night. Oh, in fact, you probably have already met him on one of the previous streams on that channel of mine. Right, let's see what else. Have I missed any comments from previous people that wanted to ask me questions? I'm surprised none of you are trying to string me up by my ankles yet, because the announcement of the grant from the EU partner was slightly offended a few people, and that's fine. But like I said, I'm not going to not engage with your question if you have any concerns about it. Otherwise, yeah, at least I put the question out there to everybody. I hear you can make petrol from plastics. You can actually, considering that plastics are a product or byproduct of refining of oil, so it is indeed possible. But whether or not, honest to God, I don't think we're at a level of desperation where that may be economically viable just yet. Is the government even looking at small modular reactors? Pete, I don't want to answer on their behalf, but I don't recall seeing anything mentioned in any of their official communications or stuff they've been saying. So I harbor doubts that that's the case, but you know what? I'll go look it up. And I'll put a pin in this comment, and hopefully I can tell you next week. But then by that stage, you'll probably know yourself as well. Thank you, Hendo. I really appreciate that. Okay, what they want to return is, remember, it's a very narrow contract we signed with them. So essentially what they want in return is for us to complete the projects successfully, the one I just talked about, and that we need to give them bi-monthly reports on the spending of the money, where it's going, as well as progress reports on what have we implemented pertaining to the presentation we give them. So what we did is we present them with the project and say, this is what we want to do. These are what we think are attainable goals, and this is how long it's going to take us to achieve them. And this is how much funding we'd like for it. Can we get it? Then they say, sure, you can get it. We're happy with the project. You've presented it to us, but we need you to report on it and tell us where it is. Oh, and the other thing is we must put their logos on everything. Not on everything. I mean, not on this stream, but we need to put their logos on at least one official communication, make it known on social media and on the website that they are funding us, because they're very proud to be funding us, as I'm equally proud that they are. It was quite a good thing that happened. And Chloe, by the way, is the rock star there. She put the whole application together. Between her and Rob, she did, I think she lost quite a few nights worth of sleep to get it in. So absolute rock star. That woman's ability to put proposals together and just make convincing arguments for funding is incredible. So yes, I can't what's the word, steel man her enough on that. I mean, thank you for the supportive comment. I do appreciate it, and thank you for Hendo as well, and Jane, and smash the like button, please. It does help us get a bit of more YouTube reach. We do want to grow the YouTube channel a bit. We find that Facebook does throttle our engagement quite extensively, in the sense that we have 200,000 people on there, but we're not getting remotely the post engagement. I mean, we have fewer YouTube subscribers than by a long shot than Facebook likes and follows, and we have nearly double the number of people watching this from YouTube. So that's clearly where the engagement is at. Morning Shot said we can get a mini power plant cheap from Russia. I'm pretty sure we can. So we've been approached, I know historically, we've been approached for nuclear reactors by Russia and France. I don't know who else did, but the fact is that they are really decent utilities and companies that specialize in building and running nuclear reactors and doing it safely and efficiently. That option is certainly out there. But the problem, of course, and I think where a lot of South African public opposition against it comes in, is they're concerned about who the government sort of makes these deals with, and the funding behind it, and what's going to happen to the money, and who gets the kickbacks, and everyone gets arms deal version 2.0 vibes, which frankly, can you blame the public for feeling that way? I personally definitely don't think you can. I think people are extraordinarily sensitive to corruption and sort of irregular expenditure and deals that at the end of the day come back to bite the tax-paying productive citizen, who's now saddled with this massive bill for something that he had no input, or she had no input in, and is now stuck with paying off in the future, where the perpetrators of the actual deal that was irregular get away scot-free and end up playing golf cure their terminal illnesses. If anyone gets that reference, let me know. It was a bit on the nose though, so you probably did. I am a bit of a nuclear power fundi, so I do follow occasionally the latest developments there, and the stuff that they're presently doing with fuel rods and nuclear waste and really making nuclear energy clean is actually astounding to me. It's something that at one stage as a kid I'd imagine it worked like, and then I learned that nuclear power doesn't quite work the way it does in the science fiction books, and now we're kind of going back into sci-fi, but it's more grounded in reality. Who would physically perform the independent review of the petrol price, and how soon before we, the public, could get any joy out of that at the petrol pump? So I'm going to need to see who the AA put forward to in their proposal to Parliament to do exactly this. But the AA, for example, are a wonderful organization. They've had great rational talking points about these issues. They've really actually done, I think, a lot to stand up for the consumer pertaining fuel prices. And they have extensive data. I mean, they've got decades, if not over a century worth of data in South Africa because they've been in the country for that long. And I think that, yeah, I would look forward to actually partnering with them on this issue and defer to their expertise in this. But I'd imagine that, look, with all things, if we were going to do this the way we usually do it, an independent review would probably get squashed and there would be no meaningful impact. The difference now being is, and I'm sure that seeing what happened in Sri Lanka and what's happening in Kenya presently and a good couple of other countries, the government would have to be fairly asleep to not be kind of concerned about these trends globally, as to what rising fuel prices, rising food prices, and rising cost of living can do to a very desperate and poor economy and poor population. So there is perhaps a very good chance now to actually succeed in expediting an outcome like this to bring the fuel price down than we would have had 2 or 3 years ago, when things were not quite this desperate, this urgent, and this pressing. So this is the other thing that we see time and time again with public participation, is the government does respond to pressure in a big way. And it does make rational sense why they would do that. Is it takes a lot for any politician. You must bear in mind that the economic definition of a politician is a vote maximizing agent. So politicians are very much professionally concerned with maximizing their votes in the next election cycle, or at least guaranteeing that they retain their position, their post, and everything that goes with it. So to make a proposal that's vehemently unpopular among the voting base is something that they're sensitive to, whether they want to admit it or not. And that is the beauty, the one part of public participation. It's obviously public participation is about far more than just the pressure, but the pressure alone has a massive impact. And we've seen it. I've seen it in my short tenure at DearSA in at least 3 campaigns where it's had massive impact. I'm sad that Rob isn't here because he's seen it in so much more since 2018. And I mean, 4,000 comments through DearSA between 2018 and this year. I mean, not 4,000, 4 million comments were delivered in this 4 to 5 year period to the government via DearSA. And that's massive. And it's had an impact. And I think close to 1 million of those comments were just on the EWC laws alone. And that succeeded in sort of dragging the issue out purely because of how unpopular it was. Let me just, scroll through these. You need to tell me if you want to help me, if you want to help somebody else, because I can't see who you are replying to, sir. Recycling nuclear waste can be made safe as a diamond battery that will give 3-volt power for up to 300 years. Okay, I was not aware of that. I learn something new every time from the audience. Always a ray of sunshine, Kermit, but thank you. I actually, funnily enough, this was not one of the things I thought about. Well, Merrily, I appreciate your optimism, and I do hope that this is exactly the outcome that we get in SA, because we certainly deserve better than we have. We definitely can change it, and I am very much a believer in what active citizens are capable of doing. And on that bombshell, I think I'm overstaying my welcome with you. But please keep an eye on this channel and on our social media and on our website, and please subscribe to our mailing list. We are going to court still end of this month about the National Health Act that government tried steamrolling through. That's the one where they refer to us, AfriForum, Sake Liga, Liberty Fighters Network, and one of the other organizations. They didn't refer to us by name, but who else were they referring to in the communication except us as terrorists and saboteurs that are undermining the authority of the state? And they then just said, no, but the 300,000 plus comments that came from us, public comments that were correctly and legally delivered, were generic, and they're just simply going to discard them all, which obviously flies in the face of a constitutionally protected process. And that's exactly why we're taking them to court. So we make sure we protect that process, that it remains sacrosanct, and that the public's say will continue to matter, because it does. And it's very, very important. CN, thank you for tuning in. Joe, thank you for being here. Cecilia, thank you for being here. But there's your comment on the screen anyway. Moonchild, thank you. It was lovely seeing you again, as well as Kermit. Indeed, it will be on Friday, Kermit. And to all of you, thank you, good night, and see you on this channel next week.